What's up, everybody? Joe White here, and I'm going to be covering some stuff in this episode that may get me in trouble. Um, in fact, you know what? I hope it does, come around to this person or these people. What you mean, these people? These people. Uncle Dave is at it again. Again. He's at it again. He's not only this time is he being a flat out doofus, with his constant stammering and rant. So. Sounds like James Stewart. No, 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 no. You see, we got a lot of fire. But he's also being a hypocrite, a big time hypocrite. The following, and I'm going to be talking over it, so I apologize ahead of time for the audio issues. For some reason, the screen recorder on my phone does not want to record from my Bluetooth headset. It wants to record from the microphone built into the phone. So the microphone sucks. I apologize for the audio ahead of time. But between Friday night and Saturday night, Meltzer went on his website that up front I do not subscribe to. I have a friend of mine who sends me this. And he talks about what has been going on with the wrestling media. And this guy, Lucas, the French man, I'll call him, when when Lucas, it's like the guy from the Wizard. When Lucas asks Triple H about the Drew Gulak firing, and he goes, "It was reported by Fightful and PW Insider that Drew Gulak had been fired. Is this true? And if so, was it related to the Ronda Rousey incident?" Now Triple H, as soon as the words Fightful and PW Insider came out of this French moron's mouth, Triple H just his reaction went from, "Hey, we're having a good time," to, "Why are you trying to spoil my parade, buddy?" And Triple H clapped back at the guy and said, "First off, when you do this, use credible sources. If you're gonna be a reporter, use credible sources." Now, PW Insider is a credible source. PW Insider, to clarify, has never came out and said anything about Drew Gulak's firing being related to the Ronda Rousey incident. They just said he had been released amid reports about the Ronda Rousey incident. They never said that it was in direct correlation to the Ronda Rousey accusations. So this gets everybody in a tizzy. This French moron goes on Post Wrestling, aka WokeWrestling.com, because, oh, it's a juicy story and we got a virtue signal. So we're going to have this French moron on. And the guy goes, "Well, I am only 25 and my English is not that good." Well, being 25 and your English not being that good is no excuse. I'm sure they had translators there that could have translated your French into that question. Okay? And if WWE is smart, if they ever do another international pay-per-view over in France or, Spain or somewhere like that, they're going to Berlin. You need to have an interpreter there if you're going to do these press conferences that speaks German. So the guy goes, "I've only been covering wrestling for 3 years." No, you've only been regurgitating what other wrestling websites have written, and you've only been giving your opinion for 3 years. Guess what? I've been doing the same for going on about probably 24 years, if not longer. Actually, I'll say that it's 20 years because I started in 2004 doing podcasts, back when it was just called internet radio. Anyway, It's no excuse. It's absolutely no excuse. You're in that room. Can you not? I mean, you need to learn as a guy, as a journalist. Even I didn't go to journalism school, but at a press conference, you kind of want to, when you're the last question being asked, don't you think that you should have read the room by then and realized the questions that they wanted to answer? But no, you didn't. You decided to go and ask about something that they clearly didn't want to answer. And even their PR guy is telling you what a dumb move. You'll probably never get invited back to one of those press conferences. That's why he told you what a stupid move. What a stupid question to ask. You honestly think that he was going to give you all the hot? Yeah, yeah. We released Drew Gulak because of the Ronda Rousey accusations, and And then the guy goes, I did that. I asked that question because I wanted to check on the safety of the locker room and make sure he had the safest place possible. How do you like my French accent? Anyway, um, if you wanted to check on the safety of the locker room and make sure that they are doing the safest thing possible for their employees, you should have been like, Hunter, great show tonight. Thank you for inviting us here. We hope you come back. Um, there have been the rumor mill has been circulating, and there's some rumors going about that some things may have happened in your locker room that towards a female talent that probably shouldn't have happened. What are you doing now since those accusations have come out? What have you been doing to make sure that your locker room is the safest place for women and men? No, you decide to name drop two wrestling websites, one of which is PW Insider, the other of which is Fightful, which is ran by, I call him Sean Ross Slap, because he just has a face that makes you want to smack him right dead across the head. And I don't think Fightful is credible with their $5 Patreon every month. But you decide to name drop this and make yourself come across like a total mark. Like a total mark. And you know what you just did? Okay? It all goes back to also, if you're going to be a journalist, you don't do that. The same way that if you're a journalist and you get invited to WrestleMania, you don't sit up in the press box singing along to Seth Rollins' music. And anybody who did that, you come off as a complete mark. You come off as just nothing more than a fan, and you don't need to be there. If I get invited to that, I'm showing no reaction whatsoever. You know what I'm doing? I'm busy watching the matches, maybe watching the crowd's reaction, and I'm typing up my report on my computer. That's what I'm doing. But this guy, old Frenchie here, I'll call him Frenchie from now on. Frenchie decides that he's just gonna spoil the party. And he even says in the interview that he did with Woke Wrestling, he said the second I mentioned Fightful and PW Insider, or even the second I mentioned Drew Gulak's name, the air came out of the room and there were audible gasps from other news outlets going, why are you asking? Basically insinuating, why are you asking about this? Why, like they're really, and I know what it's like to ask a real question and get snickered at. It's not fun. But at that point, you kind of got to read the room. I'll give you a prime example. They were doing a fan fest at CWF Mid Atlantic. I know this is on a totally way lower level than what WWE is, but they did a fan Q&A with the booker and the head of production. And it was Brad Stutz, the booker, Grant Sawyer, the lead of production, head cameraman, production guru. The guy is amazing. But I asked a question about, at that time, Trevor Lee, formerly known as Cameron Grimes, was wrestling in that promotion, and he was doing a program with a babyface named Nick Richards, and Trevor kind of was playing the heel. And I asked the question, did you think that was going to be, did you plan for that going in? Was that the intention? And everybody who had came from all over the country who wasn't there week to week kind of laughed at the question, like, what a mark for asking. Okay? But it wasn't a mark thing for asking, because it could have been the plan all along for him to go heel. And I thought it was a valid question at the time. What I did not do is go, hey, PW Insider reports that Trevor Lee is now a heel. What do you think about that? Big difference. Big difference. But you don't just sit there and name drop wrestling websites, one of which is a total dirt sheet. They're not even American owned. The guy lives up in Canada who owns that damn website, for crying out loud. But the main reason of this video is Meltzer took that response, which I think he's jealous because he didn't get a cheese board. Because after Triple H made those remarks, after the press conference was over, he immediately went and he called Sean Ross Sapp. And then he went online and apologized to Mike Johnson. And WWE, along with handwritten notes, sent those two wrestling websites a cheese board from France as kind of a make good. But Dave Meltzer didn't get a cheese board. So what does he do? He goes on his Wrestling Observer radio show. And he proceeds to say the following about this. He thinks he is the authority just because he's been doing it the longest. I've been doing this for 50 years, and I'm the authority. I'm the benchmark. No, what you are is a hypocrite, as we will soon see and hear. All right, so I'm sorry if you hear my fan in the background. I'm sorry if you hear all this stuff in the background, guys. But I felt like I had to do it this way rather than edit together, because this is going to be long. No doubt about it. Give me 1 second here. All right, sorry. So this is what the conversation, this is Garrett, I don't know the guy's last name, and Dave Meltzer, Mr. This is Dave Meltzer. And they're getting ready to get into a conversation on the wrestling media. And we will, I'll stop it or pause it at certain points. And as my truck is getting ready to cut on, hold on, guys. All right, normally I would want the truck to run, but it's not that hot outside. I'm up here in Scranton, Pennsylvania tonight, and up here in the mountains in PA, and it's not that warm. So here we go. I hope this picks up. Dave Meltzer, along with his pal Garrett, they're going to start talking about the wrestling media.
All right, this discussion on the pro wrestling media stems from the press conference at Backlash last week, where a young journalist by the name of Lucas Sharpio, I don't know if I'm getting that right necessarily.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
He asked a question that he used the names of two websites, Pro Wrestling Illustrated and Fightful.
Pro Wrestling Insider and Fightful.
I'm sorry, Pro Wrestling Insider. And Triple H, Paul Levesque, made a comment about them not being reputable or whatever. And then what we learned is that he was told by a WWE PR person that the question was, what was the term? I forgot the term that the PR
stupid question.
Stupid question, yeah.
Stupid question. Yeah.
So, and then there was obviously fallout from that. I saw lots of tweets about it and such. But where do you? What is your overall take as being, the person who's been in this business as part of the media and a journalist the longest? Like, what do you think about what happened?
I think it's very sad in a lot of ways. I don't know. I just thought a normal question.
His stammering is so stupid sometimes, I swear. I'm not the most fluid speaker in the world. I have my moments, no doubt about it. But this guy just takes the cake, man. And this is a guy, let's not forget, he's been on shows like Phil Donahue back in the day. Remember? Remember Phil Donahue? For those who remember Phil Donahue, you know you had to be a pretty you needed to be a pretty fluid speaker to be on that show. And whatever. Here's Dave.
And Levesque just said something probably without thinking, and probably he would want to walk back. He can't say.
Of course he wants to walk it back. He was in the heat of the moment. But anyway.
In a rush to get off the air as well, because they had the
Kentucky Derby thing.
Yes.
Yeah. It was they actually had finished the press conference. It was done. This was your last question, and it wasn't this question. And then Paul goes, "We got 4 minutes. Let's take one more." And that was the question. So, and the question was about, the guy was essentially asking if Ronda Rousey's comments had anything to do with Drew Gulak being released. And he said, well, he's not released. They're just not going to renew his contract when he's on, which is the same thing. And then people are jumping on, those guys for, oh, you got it wrong. And it's like, yeah, it's like, it's the same thing. So
it's not the same thing. I mean, yeah, okay. They quickly took him off TV, and they stopped using him. But of course WWE's not going to come out and say this. Of course they're not going to come out and say this. That, yeah, he tugged on a former bantamweight champion's drawstring on her sweatpants, and that got him fired. And now that this is all out, years later in a book, we had to let him go. I mean, accusations, whatever happened to innocent until proven guilty? Nowadays it's guilty until proven innocent. That's not making any excuses for Gulak. Because Drew Gulak was everybody has come out and said, no, not everybody, but people have come out and said that he was a bully. There's been evidence of him being a bully, especially down in NXT. But if you honestly think that WWE is going to come out and say, yeah, we fired him because he was a pervert, come on. Come on. And everybody's going up against PW Insider never said that one was related to the other. They said that this comes after he was accused, but they never said that was the reason why WWE let him go. I can't speak for Sean Ross Slap, but I can speak for Mike Johnson. Anyway, let's continue here. Again, this is going to be a long one.
Those guys, as far as, and then they first went on Lucas because it's like, oh, we never said it was Ronda Rousey. And it's like, yeah, you didn't. And that's right. You didn't say it. But it's like, that's what it was. No matter what Triple H says. I mean, the timing is right there, and then they come up with these other reasons. And they're all true, by the way, as far as like that stuff. But if
you're talking about the bullying,
stuff,
yeah.
But it's like these are stories from a long time ago, and it's like if that was the reason, this would have happened a long time ago. It happened right after the Ronda thing. They had an investigation right after the Ronda thing. I think that they just felt that the Ronda thing got so much publicity, and he's not important. He's a main roster salary guy who was in NXT, I believe, or whatever. But it's just, he's not, he's not Kevin Owens, and he's not Seth Rollins.
Now, I will give Meltzer credit. He's right about that. It's Drew fucking Gulak. Who cares? At the end of the day, who cares? It's Drew Gulak. I mean, the most important thing he ever did there was probably his run with 205 Live. Anyway, let's go.
Who, will take the bad publicity, we don't need to take bad publicity for Drew Gulak. And there's other reasons too, but obviously that's why it happened. They won't say that. But then everyone getting on, well, we never said that. And it's like, but and it doesn't matter if it, and you know what? Yeah, you didn't say that. And he didn't say you said it, but he was just, so he's gotten, I just think it's so sad, the heat that he's gotten.
It's not, I mean, the death threats and all the heat, and if you want to send a mean tweet to the guy, that's wrong. Death threats and everything, obviously. But when the guy literally goes, my English wasn't that good, I was nervous, and then he goes, I'm only 23 years old or 25 years old. Your age has nothing to do with it, dude. You know, freaking Izzy is in these damn press conferences for AEW. Anyway. And then he goes, if WWE was wanting to have a serious press conference, they wouldn't allow kayfabe answers. Well, dude, at the point where you were allowed to ask a question, you should have read the room. You should have read the room and been like, oh, look, they're not going to answer this. They're not going to answer it. And, you know, I applaud him for having the balls to ask the question. But, again, you didn't have to throw in the website names either. Because the second you do that, the second you say you're going off based what they do, they don't take you seriously.
You know, I don't even call it ballsy for just asking a question that should have been asked. You know, I mean, and it's granted, it's like, I think that was like the only real question in that whole press conference. Well, because they're in France, so you didn't have the guys who would have asked that would have probably still been allowed in. So you had your just, you know, press conference. I mean, nobody asked about Vince or anything like that, you know, or anything real.
They're not going to ask about Vince. Why would you want to ask about somebody who's gone? Why? Because WWE's named in this lawsuit? The only reason why they're named in the lawsuit is because this woman wants some money. WWE, it has come out that the board of directors in WWE did not even know about this. She could say, oh yeah, certain people knew, but they never brung it up in a corporate board meeting, I'm sure. Come on. You know, or any, you know, real questions. And so it's just like, that was just it was sad that Paul Levesque said that. It was sad the way that those guys reacted, you know. It was not sad the way those guys reacted. I'll give Sean Ross Sapp credit for this. It was not sad the way those guys reacted. They have a website to defend. Just like I'm sure if the guy would have said Wrestling Observer, if Paul would have said that about you, you would have just shrugged, you know, it's okay. Come on. You don't have to defend your fort. Your mansion on the hill's paid for. Theirs isn't.
When you say those guys reacted, do you mean that those two websites wanted to pull themselves away from that story or from Triple H's comments immediately?
Yeah. They didn't want to complain to that Triple H wronged them because it's like, you know, I mean, I'll give Sean Sapp credit because when they called up Sean Sapp to apologize, I thought what he wrote made it very clear that, you know, when they said like it had, you know, we didn't mean it when it came to you, you know, he was like, this is what they told me. And I reading between the lines, and he even pretty much said it. It's like, you know, I don't believe it, but that's what they told me, you know.
And the other thing about Sean, I think he was dealing with a funeral of maybe his grandmother while all of this stuff was happening. So he's kind of offline, and I'm sure his phone's blowing up. So that is a part of this that he had to deal with.
You run a business. Life is going to get in the way of business. At the end of the day, the business is still going to be there. It's a part of being in that business, dude. I don't care who dies. You know, you don't have to check your phone. You could have turned your phone off if you had a funeral or whatever to deal with. It's no excuse. Sorry, it's just not. Oh, his grandma died, so don't say, hey, they called you out. No, come on.
as well. Just not excusing anything or giving that, but I know he was dealing with that.
You are excusing something. By bringing it up, Garrett, you're creating an excuse. It's no excuse.
I have nothing really negative to say other than, in the sense of when they sent him the thing. And I'm sure he wrote, put that thing up, whatever it is, the cheese that they sent him, which is like an inside joke. It's like, I would never have done it, but, I know a lot of people jumped on him over it. But that's a minor thing to me,
Yeah. A lot of people are going, they sent you some cheese to go along with your wine. Come on. It's kind of funny. Of all the things they send them, cheese.
People want to make a bigger thing out of that than it is. But I thought, look, neither of them, neither Johnson nor or was Mike Johnson. So neither Mike Johnson nor Fightful.
Jesus Christ.
Oh, Sean, whatever, Fightful. Neither of them deserve that credit because both of them, as far as that aspect of doing things, they're credible sources. Like if I read something from either of them, I would believe it. I mean, sometimes, I'll check and maybe it's not exact, but and even if it's not, it's close. Or even if it's a little off, like everything, it's a business with a lot of people that, stories kind of get changed.
Yeah, because your shit never your shit's always right, Meltzer. Your shit's always right. Like that Dragon Gate story that somebody fed you and you completely reported it as fact. Yeah, you never get anything wrong. You never get anything just a bit off. How many stories have we had in the last year where it's just people sending you crap and you just report it if it's fact? Give me a break.
Yeah, people are talking to lots of different people.
Right. So it's like I'm never I think they do a good job as far as that goes. As far as the reaction, I just thought that it was immediately we have to tell everyone that they like us. And it's
I can tell you that, and we might get into Dave Scherer's thing here in a little bit, but because Dave Scherer came out and said, I don't care if they like me. We're still going to do, Mike Johnson just reported a couple days ago that Jerry Lawler was no longer with the company except for in a Legends role. And that very same day, he interviewed Jerry Lawler. They don't care if WWE likes him. Sean Ross Sapp might, and Fightful might. But I don't think they care. They didn't say it because, we got to retain our access. They said it because some French moron who barely speaks English went over sat there in front of the chief creative officer of the company and quoted them. So they have to get ahead of it and go, look, this guy doesn't work for us. By the way, we never said A, B, and C. We may have said D and E, but never, I'm sorry, you're defending your business. If I own a hamburger shop and somebody goes, don't go over there, they serve raw meat, I'm going to do everything I can to tell that person to screw off, first of all. And then second of all, I'm going to do everything I can to tell the public, we do not serve raw meat. As a matter of fact, here, let me cook a hamburger right in front of you. Same concept.
They're not supposed to like you. If you're doing a good job, they don't like you.
This is where it goes off the rails. This is where it goes off the rails. Here's a guy who's best friends with the Young Bucks, who's really good friends with Tony Khan, has admitted that he talks to Tony Khan on the regular. But they're not supposed to like you if you're doing a good job. Here's the thing, Dave's not doing a good job. Why? Because Dave can't stand the fact that WWE won't, Triple H isn't buddy-buddy with him like Tony Khan and the Young Bucks are. Not once Not once. He may have said, oh, I don't understand why they're doing this, or I don't like the fact that they're doing that. Not once, though, has Dave Meltzer came out and said Tony Khan is not a good booker. Because in his mind, oh, he was voted Booker of the Year 2 years in a row. That must make him good. No. I tell you, the first time I heard this, I screamed, are you freaking kidding me? This guy's criticizing the way WWE likes or dislikes people. Yet, here's a guy who is, I won't say he's on the payroll for AEW, but he's definitely on their taint enough, ain't he? Let's continue here.
They'll put up with you. I mean, they'll put up with you. You know, if you're good enough and you're important enough, they'll put up with you.
Okay, so does AEW just put up with you? No. You're on the inside of that company, whether you think you are or not, whether you're on their payroll or not. You've admitted that you're their friends. You're friends with these guys. Mike Johnson has never said he's friends with Triple H and that he talks to Triple H on the regular and that he's texted Triple H. But you, on the other hand, you do the same with Tony Khan and with the Young Bucks and with Omega, and that's okay?
But you don't want to be their friends.
You don't want... And there it is. There it is. The whole point. You don't want to be their friends. Why are you friends with the Young Bucks? Why are you friends with Omega? Why are you friends with Tony Khan? If you're not supposed to be their friend, then why are you their friend?
You know, you don't want to be their. You don't want to be their enemies just to be their enemies. That's bullshit too. But it's like, I just thought that there was this thing of like this idea that, oh, you know, we have to make sure that everyone knows that they still like us. They still like us. They didn't mean it. They didn't mean it. And it's like, first.
No. If somebody, again, I'll use the hamburger thing, goes, let's say my hamburger joint is right beside a McDonald's, and the Burger King that's across the street. The manager of the Burger King points across the street and goes, they serve wrong hamburgers. Well, I didn't mean you. I meant the McDonald's that sits beside you. Or, yes, they're going to issue a public apology to a news outlet. It's good business. It's good business not to sit there and go, yeah, we're sore at news outlets. Because that means then nobody's going to want to come to your press conference. Nobody who is worth a damn. Come on.
First of all, you know, it's a flippant remark that Levesque said that he probably wouldn't again. But do you really think, you know, these wrestling people have been around this business for 40 years, 50 years in some ways, but 40 years doing this. And
yeah, and you've completely lost your mind.
Really like the reporters. They do, you know, they put up with them. They'll be nice to them. It's part of the thing. But they want to own everything. They want to control everything. How many times did they tried to start their own news services, just failed because it didn't come. They don't want anyone else in this business other than them. They want to control the entire...
Duh. They want to protect their investment. They don't want people like me on YouTube yucking it up about them. That's understandable.
Stories.
Yeah, but I mean, the whole thing is that's the history, and it's like an Endeavor. It's not any different. It's like that's what it is, and that's fine. But I mean, this whole thing of people trying to act like, oh, you know, they like me and this and that. It's like, number one, it's like
Mike Johnson never came out and said, oh, they like him. They said they apologized to him. Big difference there.
If you think they do, then you're not doing a good enough job. And, you know, so I was kind of, so some aspects of that kind of got me I don't know, just wasn't happy with it. But the stuff, as far as like Lucas, he got like death threats, and he's had a ringer of a week himself. 21-year-old.
21 years old. Nobody deserves death threats. Nobody deserves harmful tweets. I get that. Nobody deserves that shit. But when you put yourself out there and you ask that kind of a question, and you throw names out there like this person reported this and that person reported that, how about you just ask the question and not give away those websites? Again, he didn't have to put those websites. Why? Why did he cite the websites? It was all over the place. Why did he name websites like that? It's stupid of him to do that. And again, learn to read a room.
Guy, and I contacted him. I actually asked him to do the show today, and because I wanted to talk with him about it, and because he did a show yesterday with John Pollock and Brandon Thurston, he got more negativity when, in fact, because he made the mention about like that they told him it was a stupid question when it was the only good question, and he got even more because these people just got on his case. And I mean, that's the other aspect of it too. Is if you're gonna do this, and boy do I know this, you better have be able to handle this negativity, because you can't survive if you can't handle the negativity.
Yeah. You know how many negative comments I have on this channel in the last couple months? Come on. You gotta have a little bit of thick skin if you want to be a pundit, if you want to be a commentator on things. 21-year-old kid. Give me a break.
I just thought like that this poor guy just asked a question, and he's made to be the villain, and he's not the villain for anything. And even people tried to like nitpick on him. That was not total nitpicking. Just because he asked a question that every single one of them probably could have asked, and several of them should have asked, given the timing of the cuts and everything like that, and the Rhonda thing, and the big picture stuff that's been circulating around WWE for decades. That hopefully they're trying to clean up and all that. But the past is the past, and it's there. And the treatment of women in the past in this organization historically has been pretty appalling in a lot of ways. In other ways, maybe not. But it was a business where until now, because the women actually are draws and actually are superstars, where they have some leverage, are they still paid equally to the guys? No.
Now he's going to go on probably about a 15-minute or 5-minute diatribe about how women are underpaid in the wrestling business. Yes, it's true. Some of those women should be making what the men are. Becky Lynch has a contract negotiation still going on. And if she's smart, she'll want to get paid what Charlotte Flair's getting paid, because Charlotte Flair's the top paid female in the company right now. The only reason why Mercedes Moné did not re-sign with WWE is because they would not pay for her tour bus, and they would not give her what Charlotte Flair was making. And then, from what I hear, WWE came back and said, we'll give you the money, but we won't give you the tour bus. We won't pay for your tour bus. So she ran to old money Mark Khan, the snowman. The old Dave Chappelle joke, just sprinkle a little crack on it, it'll be okay. He sprinkled a little crack on it, a little coke on it, on his checkbook, and he wrote her a big fat check and said, here's her tour bus. So I'm going to try to skip this diatribe, and I'll be right back.
My thoughts on these press conferences. I just think, and though I do respect the reporters who do attempt to ask real questions at them, I'm just so turned off by the idea of them. And that being said,
that doesn't stop your website that you report for from going to every last one of Tony Khan's press conferences that they can.
Nick Khan is like he's a real person in this business to where because I follow a lot of Hollywood media, I follow a lot of sports media. He's a true power player.
Absolutely. And as far as, and that's probably why that they apologized so quickly, because from the Nick Khan standpoint, Nick Khan was someone who was always very good with the media, although you never saw his name. But he always was. I mean, when he got hired,
because he's behind the scenes guy. He's not going to be out there. What do you expect Nick Khan to be out there instead of Triple H? No. It's not going to work like that.
in WWE, boy, did you hear people from out of everywhere, from Stephen A. Smith and people like that. The Godfather, Nick Khan, right? It's like, if, you know, I knew Nick Khan because I knew he negotiated those deals, and I also knew he was repping people who I know. But it's like, I doubt anyone in wrestling when he got hired for that job, maybe vaguely, oh yeah, Nick Khan was the guy who made those WWE deals. It was not that famous. I mean, when he got hired, I knew enough to write some pretty big stuff at the time because I knew of Nick Khan. You know, I knew who he was. You know, it's like, and I know everything like that. He's a real non-wrestling guy. Not that he doesn't know wrestling. And you know, there's, a couple people have talked about the PR war and everything like that. And you know, WWE is like, they're so far ahead, and AEW should be the one, that is at least the equal, because it's not something that is necessarily.
No, because they have a guy, and I think they'll even bring this up. They have a bug-eyed Nepo baby cokehead out there answering all the questions. And flat out refusing to answer anything at times. And when he does answer stuff truthfully, in the way it ought to be answered, he goes on these rants, nonsensical rants, like the CM Punk, this guy did the Monday Night War, he did it, he did this, he did that. Oh. So no, Tony Khan's no better at this.
I don't know how to explain it, but there's a cost, but it's not an exorbitant cost. And I mean, they've created a basic thing where the normalcy is to, bash AEW and everything like that. And
when have they bashed AEW? He flat out said, you got to fire people. It's part of business. You just can't hire and hire and hire and never let anybody go. Come on. He's telling the truth in business. That's probably a thing at a dig at AEW. But he ain't saying anything that isn't true.
You defend AEW, you must be on the payroll and the actuality is that for the most part, and this even showed it, was that most of these people, that it's like there's a lot of people that are, how would I say it? The same thing could happen in AEW and WWE, or worse, and the reaction will be very, very different.
Yeah, because you kissed Tony Khan's ass. Hi, Tony, great show tonight. Hi, Tony, great show tonight. Hi, Tony, great show tonight. That's what you get from every single reporter who goes backstage at one of those AEW press conferences. Hi, Tony, great show tonight. And then they proceed to ask fluffball questions that Tony Khan gives just non-answers to. When somebody asks him a tough question in the media on a radio interview, that's a great question. We got AEW Dynamite coming up. People just want to see how good match is. Come on, give me a break.
WWE with the Vince thing. I mean, there was not. I mean, yeah, there were people. Obviously John Pollock and Brandon and myself and all that wrote about Vince over and over and over again, and still do, and still write.
That's the point. Dave Scherer mentions him too. Dave Scherer mentioned him quite a bit behind his paywall. And Dave Scherer wrote article after article about this. Crazy grandpa dangled his dingle where it shouldn't have been dangled. But they're not going to sit there and every other post on their website be about this guy, or about Janelle Grant, or about the lawsuit. I'm sick of hearing about it. Myself, I'm sick of hearing about it. I did a couple of videos on it. Mainly because I'm sick and tired of everybody going, this poor girl, woe was me. This poor girl really didn't have a thing to say about it until she stopped getting paid. Come on. You got to be able to see the forest through the trees. She was all happy when she was getting paid. Now, is what Vince did to her, passing her around many different men and crapping on the woman's head? It's wrong. I know I say it with a laugh, but come on. It's wrong. It's wrong. Vince is not innocent here, and I'm not victim shaming. We'll get to that in a minute with the sky blue thing that he talks about. I'm not victim shaming. What I'm saying is you can't, show some respect for yourself. Don't sit there and go, hey, everybody, go to my OnlyFans, or hey, go to my Patreon, check out my hot new saucy pics. And then when these people who are subscribers to your Patreon show up in real life and go, damn, you got a nice ass, get offended. Anyway, back to Uncle Dave.
That suit. Everyone else, even from WWE, it's like, everyone's over it now. And in a sense, of course they are, because they just want to, they want a seat at that table, as opposed to actually look at the big issues and the...
What? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Mike Johnson has never once said, I need to be invited to anything. I want a seat at the table, as opposed to what? Boring your viewers with, today, Janelle Grant spat on the sidewalk outside of WWE headquarters. No, I don't want to hear it. He's gone.
The real stories. And I'm not surprised it's like that, but it's like the state of the... it's a sad state of the pro wrestling media, because there's very few that want to be adversarial. They all want to be friends.
Like you? Like you? Come on! Hi, Pot. Dave Meltzer's the kettle. You want to be friends with Omega and the Bucks and Khan so badly that you, motherfucker, won't come out and criticize this guy's booking hardly. And when you do, you just shrug it off like, oh, I don't know. I don't understand it. It's okay. It's okay. It'll be all right. Meanwhile, the arenas are 3/4 are empty. The ratings are in the toilet. The damn demographic, the 18 to 35 demographic is gone, but the 35 to 50 has risen. Why? Look at their audience again. Men my age with big old neck beards and slag women on their arms. Come on. Look at the crowd. Some of those women got better mustaches than the men. I'll say it, I don't care. Come on. You can't be this hypocritical, man. You are so being a hypocrite by saying this.
and you can't be.
They want to be in the good graces because being in the good graces means you get more access.
Says the guy, says the website, who's scared of losing his access. That's why he won't cut to the quick and say Tony Khan should not have that book. He won't say it. He will not say it. He'll say everything negative but that. Oh, this wasn't a good match. I don't get why they're doing this. I don't get why they're doing that. You get why they're doing it. It's because they got a cokehead for a booker. But you want your access, and you're scared of losing your little Rancho Cucamonga friends from California, and you're scared of losing the PWG audience, that you won't come out and say it.
You don't get more information.
Right.
You get,
but in some cases,
they may give you some scoops. That's true.
Especially for the content creators, right? Because now the game is the wrestling media game is not just
it's not journalism
stories that you write or scoops. It's also content creation. And John,
like me, hi, how are you? Hi. Yes, it is. Only I'm not covering WWE. I'm not covering AEW. I'm covering you and your hypocritical take on this.
Pollock just wrote something earlier today about this whole scenario, and he mentioned that his website, he's fortunate to be able to run a business that isn't necessitated by the access that companies give him. Like he can write what he wants to write. It's not about getting access to people. But
who? What access does Mike Johnson have? I don't know about Sean Ross Sapp because I don't read their stuff. But you get access to every AEW talent under the sun. How many times have you interviewed Omega? Hell, this same episode, he interviews JR about his book. You know, this is such a hypocritical take, guys.
In the content creation game,
can I say something real quick? Because
yeah, go ahead.
You brought something up that actually reminds me years and years and years ago.
Everything's years and years and years. It's like so years and years and years. Years and years and years.
Dana White, and boxing was like this too. It wasn't just Dana. There was a change in media in the sense that there was the media, the newspapers, the magazine. All right, so I'm going to skip ahead because now he's going on a diatribe about Dana White, who nobody cares about really. Give me a second here. So basically, he's talking about the MMA. He's talking about the MMA press credentials and how he used to cover it, but he doesn't get access anymore, and they cut them off. They cut people like him off. So let's continue here because he says something here that's interesting. He basically banned internet stuff, and these guys all cried and cried, and it's like, and I thought I was banned too. I wasn't, but I didn't know that for like 10 months, so I never went, did anything, but I never cried about it. Brian didn't cry about it. It's just like, it's the same thing that we get with wrestling. We didn't need access. Oh, like you do with Tony Khan? You got to be friends with him. Heaven forbid you should come out and say he's not a good booker. You'll lose credibility and access right there with them. That's how he feels. He's such a hypocrite. We didn't need a press credential to cover this. I didn't need a press credential to call people up or anything. You don't need a press credential to do reporting. But it does help you. I mean, if I want to cover the NFL, if I decide I want to be an NFL reporter, first off, I got to gain some credibility. And then I have to call the NFL and say, hey, can I get a press pass? Or I would need to call each individual team and go, hey, I'm on the beat for your team at NFLinsider.com. Can I please have a press credential to come ask some questions to cover my beat?
That's how it works. Mike Johnson and everybody up, everybody, they needed press credentials to be up in that press box. Now, what I don't agree with, again, is people up in that press box acting like total marks, singing along with Seth Rollins' theme song.
That, you know what I mean? And, so I remember that period, but now it's a completely different period because, MMA, like with wrestling, unlike with the NBA or the NHL or baseball, where you have a whole group of reporters that have done it and had their training and done it for years and are legendary in their field, MMA was pretty much, a startup, and wrestling very similar because the real top caliber reporters were not covering MMA, and they certainly weren't covering pro wrestling. So, you had this new thing, and it was, it was so much about, wanting to be friends and not wanting to say anything negative. And
like you with AEW? Like you are with AEW? Come on. Again, what a hypocrite.
It allowed, I won't even say it allowed people to get away with a lot of shit, but it's just like you didn't want to be negative, and it's like Wrestle Joy. It's like
you don't want to be negative. You won't be negative about AEW. Every show just has good matches. And you don't criticize the storylines. And if you do happen to say, I don't get why they're doing this. And he goes, it's
fatality.
He goes, sorry about that, guys. He's like, it's whatever. It's whatever. That's what he says. It's whatever. No, it's not whatever. It's called they have a cokehead for a booker who can't book wrestling.
We don't want to dwell on the bad stuff. And I see it in, what these, I watch the WWE pressers, and when Levesque was doing it, I was on most of the calls, almost all of them. And with Levesque, there were, it was funny to me because there was always like, as soon as they said who the person was, I always knew there's 6, 7, 8 people. I knew they're good question. It's going to be a good question no matter what. Okay. And if it wasn't, it was always, these questions that made me gag. And like, I remember when,
like you asking MJF how his workout routine and diet changed. Hi, Tony. Good show tonight. Hi, good show tonight. And then you ask fluff questions. You yourself ask fluff questions at these AEW press conferences. And you stopped doing the WWE ones because they found out you were on the line and they didn't want to talk to you because they don't find you any more credible than anybody else, dude. Yes, you've been doing it longer, but that doesn't mean you've been doing it better.
Hawaii and my girlfriend, since we went the last Hawaii trip November, right?
So he has a girlfriend now. Not that it's any of my business, but Meltzer get divorced? I thought he had a wife.
December, whatever it was when I was there. And it was December. And there was a Tony Khan press conference for one of the shows. It might have been whatever it was. And we're listening. And
no, whatever it was. You mean Full Gear? Thought you were the expert. If it was November, it would have been Full Gear.
She's just like, she's from real media,
Yeah.
Real background. And she's just like, what are you listening to? This is like and she did that with the Levesque one after Royal Rumble. It was like, oh my God, she couldn't even believe it. It's like, what is this? And it's like, I'm used to it, but when someone who's not a wrestling person is, hears it for the first time, they're going like, it's like one question out of 10 is like something that would be like as a comparison, if you were, at a baseball or NFL press conference.
There's been plenty of, I know what he's about to say here. There's plenty of baseball, football, NASCAR. NASCAR's famous for it. They try to ask these drivers real questions, and they get laughed out of the room. Tony Stewart has gone off on how many reporters when he was in racing during his career? Come on. You know? Like, you're going to sit there and ask Tony Khan, how much does your Coke habit cost every week? Is that factored into the AEW budget? Is it true you keep a sugar bowl with you back there to gorilla position? Nobody's going to ask him that. Nobody's going to ask, is it true that you had cocaine-filled parties in the hotels during the COVID era? Nobody's going to ask, is it true that you have Asperger's or autism and you're on Adderall for that? Why do your eyes bug out so much? Nobody asks about that. Why did you book it this way? Because they know that all they're going to get is people want to see good matches.
This nothing at all.
It's people that do that. They kind of get, they kind of get rushed out of there. Okay, move on. Let's get some real questions.
They don't get rushed out of there. They don't get rushed out of there. Tony Khan rushes you out of there. Oh, thanks for asking that question. I'm not going to answer it though. Move on. I can't legally talk about that. But let's get back to the good matches. How many times during the whole CM Punk thing, after Brawl Out, did people ask about it? Look at the Ariel Helwani interview. Look at the Ariel Helwani interview that Tony Khan did. That he did with Tony Khan. Just go watch that interview. That's what happens when people try to ask real questions, when people try to get that dirt. Do you honestly think? McMahon's gone. What's the point in asking about him? Come on.
You would get that. Tony is a hit and miss. Tony will be either, I can't speak, thank you for the question, I can't speak of it. And people sometimes get frustrated with that.
Or he just says the thing that he wants to say as his answer.
No, he goes, he either says, thank you for the question, I can't answer that legally, or he goes, we do our best, and we got this Monday night, and this Friday night, and this blah, 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 blah. This Wednesday night on Dynamite, we got blah, blah, blah. He goes back into promoting. He totally dodges the question. Give me a break if you don't think that, just go watch the Ariel Helwani interview. It doesn't serve me. But let me tell you about my good matches.
To somehow chain that together with the question.
Yeah.
And he's promoting at the same time.
But even like in real politics, you get those kind of answers.
Oh yeah.
But I'll watch a political press conference and they're trying to blow off real questions too. But you don't have these really terrible questions like you get on these, a lot of these calls where, I thought it was bad with Dana where it would be, I'm blah, blah, blah from San Diego. Dana, when are you going to bring UFC to San Diego? It's like, when are you going to bring UFC to Paris, France?
Yeah, I remember those.
And it's just like, God,
So going back to what I was saying with Nick Khan being a real power player, the part of his success is his ability to communicate with reporters.
Absolutely.
He gets such good...
Again, Nick Khan isn't going to be on the press conferences. He's not going to. Get over yourselves. Hold on, let me see if I can get through this, because I think they go on another 10-minute Nick Khan diatribe. Alright, so they say that Nick Khan is not the right guy to be out there doing these press conferences, but listen to what he says here.
And Paul Levesque is the right guy. It's just that when, Paul is so used to the fact that 95% of these people will never ask him a hard question, that it's almost like, we're having a party here. Why are you asking us a hard question?
You know what it also is?
Yet you sit there. Hi, Tony. Good show tonight. Hi, Tony. Good show tonight. And then you ask him, how has your diet and workout changed going into this? Give me a break. You had a chance to ask MJF Any question you wanted to, and you asked him, how did your workout and diet changed? Because you're still an idiot who gets off on bodybuilders.
Good with that. I mean, even when you did the calls before, and I mean, I remember one when it was when Patrick Clark was,
that was the bad one.
Was in trouble, and yeah, and he didn't do well on that one either, because at that point there were 3 or 4 real reporters on that thing in between the fake ones.
What is he supposed to say? What is he supposed to say? Like, what are they supposed to say about the Vince thing? What do you want them to say about it? He's no longer there. Patrick Clark was fired. They did the right thing. They found out about it. They did a little bit of an investigation and they got rid of him. Same thing for Vince. The Wall Street Journal stories kept bouncing. They did an investigation that they're making Vince pay for, and he's gone. Now, granted, he came back, but then this thing happened with the Janelle Grant lawsuit, and he's gone again, never to return. What more do you want them to do? What more do you want them to say? It's like if I work at a 7-Eleven and I take a piss in the Slurpee machine and somebody drinks it, what do you want 7-Eleven to do? We fired him. Come on. Again, it doesn't excuse what Vince did, and I'm not victim shaming. But from a WWE standpoint, if I'm a 7-Eleven, again, if I go pee in the 7-Eleven Slurpee machine, 7-Eleven does an investigation about it after somebody gets sick. They're probably going to pay whoever got sick a lot of money. They're going to settle out of court for it. And then 7-Eleven's probably going to turn around and sue me for doing this. But they're going to look back at the surveillance footage and go, oh, there he is. There he is. He's dropping his pants. Up. He's peeing in the Slurpee machine. We got to get rid of him. What more do you want 7-Eleven to do? And it does you no good as a news outlet. It does you no good as a news outlet to sit there and go, today, there's no update on the guy who peed in the Slurpee machine. We're waiting for the hands of justice to turn around and smack the guy in the face. Day 42, there is no update on the guy who peed in the Slurpee machine. Now, if I came out there and said, that's not me on the video day after day after day, then, yeah, it's worth reporting. And Vince has came out and said, I categorically deny this. But he's not sitting there day after day after day going, I deny this. She's a hoe. Come on. How much are you going to devote your time to covering something that hasn't changed? He's gone, never to return.
And they were grilling him on Patrick Clark. And, but it was, I think after the first one, it's just like, we investigated, there's nothing there, move on, no more questions on the subject. Like right away, just trying to shut it down.
Yeah. What do you expect him to say?
And it's like, okay.
But sometimes, I think for the majority of the questions, he's actually pretty good, and he's pretty clever. And
he's very good. He's very good in that environment, but not, when it comes to having to deal with like the Vince McMahon lawsuit, which is a tough one. It's, it's a tough one. It's his father-in-law. It's the grandfather of his kids. It's a horrible, horrible lawsuit. It's the guy who trained him and taught him and essentially put him in that position. He's very, very tied to the guy. The guy, he owes the guy his entire...
Again, that adds to the fact of it adds to the fact of what do you want him to say about this? Yeah, he won't be getting a Christmas card this year. Next question. I mean, come on. Come on.
And then this thing comes out, and it's a tough thing, but I don't think he handled it well at all under the circumstances. But there's nothing that would handle it well. Just like when Tony's in tough situations, we always go, oh, I should have handled it this way. It's like there really is no good way to handle those things, because whatever you say, you're not going to tell the truth, and you're not going to go into detail, because it only makes it worse for your company. You're trying to protect your company. Maybe you're trying to protect your talent. Maybe you're just trying to protect yourself.
But
or you're just trying to keep. Oh, we just had this great Royal Rumble, and we don't want any negativity tonight, even though
exactly.
There's this giant news story that the guy who founded this frickin' company or created this entire wrestling world that we live in, he's gone. It's like, just a bump in the road. He's gone.
What do you want them to do? Well, again, if I go pee in the Slurpee machine at 7-Eleven, do you want 7-Eleven to go, okay, guys, we fired the guy. We have replaced the Slurpee machine completely. We didn't just clean it. We got that Slurpee machine out of there and ordered a new one. What more do you want him to do? What more do you want him to say? What do you want him to do? Throw his head back like he's fainting in his head, hand on his head like an old Southern woman, and go, oh, such a tragedy. Never mind the Royal Rumble. Let me talk about my father-in-law and what a pervert he is. No. No. It's not good business. WWE since the Rumble has been hotter than they've ever been. If anything, there's a meme around there, and I think I even put it on this channel. Janelle Grant deserves the Warrior Award because wrestling has become better since Vince McMahon's been gone. Come on. He's gone. We've gotten what we've always wanted for the last 15 years. I had resigned myself to the simple fact that this business was never going to get any better until he's dead. So, I mean, what do you want Triple H to do? What do you want them to say? They're going to write this woman a big fat check to go the hell away. You'll never hear from her again. And what do you expect them to do? Spend 15 fucking hours a day talking about this? Every minute of every day has to be spent. Vince McMahon, Vince McMahon, Vince McMahon. No! He's gone. He's selling his stock, never to return.
And it's like, dude, this is the guy who, without him, God only knows what this business is. You know what I mean? It's like he's the single most important person in the history of this entire business, and he's gone, and we're all supposed to go, bad man gone.
Yeah.
Yes! Yes, that's what you're supposed to do. Bad man's gone. Move along.
We've exercised ourselves of the bad man. We don't want to talk about him anymore. We can't talk about him anymore. And we got a show Friday night.
Yes, that's exactly what you're supposed to do. They did it after Chris Benoit died. They erased every little thing they could of him. So, what do you want them to do? What do you want him to say? What do you want him to do? Talk about his personal life of, Christmas was a bit awkward this year. Quite frankly, that's none of the wrestling media or anybody else's business. He's gone. Whatever happens afterwards has nothing to do with WWE from here on out.
And this is more of a Dana problem than it is a Triple H problem, but my sense is when they don't want to answer something, what comes out is like this jock bully mentality. Like, I saw the switch a little bit, and I think if you're Nick Khan and you see that, you're he's probably thinking like, man, okay, we can handle this way better.
Now that I will agree with. But then again, did the reporter have to name the websites? If I'm could Triple H have said, hey, go get your own sources instead of sourcing somebody else? If those sources, so-called sources, when I ask me about this, they're more than welcome to fly over here to France and ask me about it. Or catch me at the next press conference. Come on now.
Nick Khan thinks WWE is just going to keep going up and up and up and up and up. There's aspects of the industry of media and of real business in covering WWE. You don't want to necessarily offend those people with these, like, Triple H. Whenever I see that mentality come out of him, I go back to like the documentary Wrestling with Shadows, when Brett's ex-wife is asking him, like, did you have anything to do with this? And he's just like lying to her face, like that mentality of,
Well, look at
That's totally different. That's totally different. He wasn't the COO of the CCO of the company. He wasn't even dating Stephanie then. Give me a break. He was messing around with China then. And yes, he was told by his boss to keep it quiet. There's a big difference between what went down with Montreal and what's going on with Vince now.
And again, the funny part is on a personal level. I like Paul Levesque. I like,
I don't care what you think about him on a personal level.
Khan. I like Tony Khan. But when I write about,
You like Tony Khan. Yeah, we know you like Tony Khan, all right. You also like the Young Bucks and Omega and all that group of Treehouse gang.
I don't. I don't dislike them. I don't like them. Every situation is different. They put on.
No. Every situation is not different when you're biased, Dave. You're completely biased with these guys.
Great show. Put on a bad show.
No. You have never once came out and said that he can't book to save his life, which is what needs to be said. You shrug your shoulders and go, whatever. But if WWE does something bad, you ridicule them and pick it apart.
This is why. Numbers are down. This is why.
Numbers are down. You won't say why. You won't come out and say why. You won't come out and say because of Tony Khan's booking.
Explanations as to why, other than just bad show. Well, what if there's something else on television? You're going against the NBA playoffs, which affects everyone, and people, I
get so sick of this. Yes, NBA, NFL, NHL, they're all going to affect you. What are we supposed to do during the weeks when they're unopposed and the show is still bad and the empty arena is still happening?
Make them for WWE too. If it's whatever, but which is a totally different thing. But yeah, I think you got to remember wrestler Paul Levesque came from the 90s. Okay,
doesn't matter where he came from. He's adapted. NXT proved that he's adapted. NXT would have been if the excuse. Well, let's just listen here.
Different thing, and it was they didn't have media other than me and Wade Keller pretty much, and then people came later, but it was like they're the bad guys because they don't say everything is great, and things go down, we have to they're gonna say why, and it's like
You won't say why when it comes to AEW. You blame the NBA and the NHL. You don't blame Tony Khan's bad booking. You don't blame his bad booking, which is why those buildings aren't full. Which is why those ratings are dropping. I'm not saying that the NBA and NHL and MLB and NFL and all that other, they play a factor. But when you clearly see an audience shift in the 18 to 35 demographic shift from one show to another, come on. Come on. Be real with yourself, Uncle Dave.
we're losing in the wrestling war, they're going to say we're losing. If we're winning,
there is no wrestling war today.
They're going to say we're winning, whatever. But, that's where he came from. And now under Nick Khan, and of course, Vince was like that. Vince was one of the ones where it's like, he didn't even, again, because he would get criticized because of the things that he didn't. And everyone in Vince's world would never criticize him. He takes no.
But it was embarrassing.
What?
The stuff that he would do in media on, Bob Costas interviews.
Bob Costas, or remember the clip after Owen Hart died, lady, or the Armin Katayan.
That stuff was just embarrassing.
Again, look at the Ariel Helwani interview. That Ariel tried his best to ask the hard questions to Tony Khan, and all he got was, "It doesn't serve me. It doesn't serve me. I'm not going to talk about it. I'm not going to talk about it." Now, granted, he didn't pull a Bob Costas. He didn't threaten to hit somebody. But Tony Khan's no saint either. And yet, every time, like in Vegas, Meltzer's going to Vegas for this damn Double or Nothing, I bet. Well, Meltzer's not, but Alvarez is. When they go to London, "Hi, Tony, great show tonight." I would like to ask Mercedes Moné, how's your diet changed? Give me a break.
You're just like, how does a human being,
Well, look, Vince is a guy who, when one of the car dealers sponsored the XFL and pulled out a sponsorship, he wanted to blow up their car, and they, the people at NBC had to talk him out of it.
That actually would have been pretty damn funny. But anyway,
Vince is, so again, this is the world that Vince created and everything like this. And now, you got Nick Khan, who's in the real world, not some
Yeah, Vince created it. But how many times have we seen people leave their companies that they create? The company goes on. The company never mentions that person again. It boggles the mind how Meltzer just keeps making these excuses.
world where everyone kisses up to you.
Mm-hmm.
So if they don't kiss up to you, it's just like they're bad men. We have to deal with them, but they're bad, and they're liars, and they're this and they're that,
I think that if this guy had never mentioned PW Insider or Fightful, he would have just said, "Hey, it's been rumor mills starting up, Come on."
Well, while at the same time being nice to you. But this, I do think that with Nick Khan, again, I think that there probably is something where, with Levesque, I think that he's probably going to learn from this and probably not do it and realize that I think it just, that thing from him, from his old days, I think just came out real quick. I'm sure he didn't, I don't say he didn't mean it. I think he meant it. And I think that the funny part is that, like, I know he meant it. And I think that those guys may or may not know he meant it, but they were so wanting to say, it wasn't us. He didn't mean it about us. And it's like, he meant it because that's what he thinks.
Again, if he would have mentioned your name, you would have said the same thing. Or you would have been like, "I don't care." You would have had a response to it. Were they not supposed to respond? Were they not supposed to, defend their websites and defend their credibility? And he called them and apologized to them. And he emailed them and said, "Hey, I didn't mean that about you. I'm sorry." He had to do a little bit of here's a cheese board. Yes, you got to do a little make good when you flub up and screw up. But I still contend that this reporter should have done this. If he's a true reporter / journalist, have your own sources, dude. I'm sorry, it's just stupid of you to bring, and WWE is right. It's stupid of you to bring up what others report. I mean, NBC's not going to go out there and go, hey, basketball coach X, ABC's reporting this. Is this true? The coach is going to go, do you have any sources on it? Or are you just taking ABC's word of it? If so, why are you even in business? Why don't you just let ABC in here and you stay at home? Come on.
He thinks about the entire industry.
That's what he thinks. That's what he thinks about me. But I'm friendly with him. But that's what he thinks about me. Or my work. I mean, personally, I don't know, and that doesn't matter. It's irrelevant.
If it doesn't matter and it's irrelevant, why are you harping on it so much, Dave? Because you let it get to you.
I also think that there was a shot at AEW and Tony Khan.
Oh, here we go.
In that same sentence that just kind of got overshadowed when he said that you can't just hire everybody and not fire anybody.
He's right. You're laughing at it there, Garrett, because he's right.
And it kind of went under the radar a little bit.
Yeah. I know. Well, when you hire people, you do have to let people go, and there is a cycle. And like they let go a bunch of people, and they're people. As to why they're not being used. It's not right.
He let about 10 people go. The rest of them have had their contracts expire because because Tony Khan does not want to be that guy that's putting up on their website, we wish people and blah 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 and the best in their future endeavors, because the wrestling media like you, Dave, have made it a narrative that it's wrong to fire them. Again, if I work at a 7-Eleven and they decide one day, hey, you're not up to snuff. We find that you're not checking out enough people per hour. So you're gone. Or hey, we found that we really don't need you to work so much. We're going to cut your hours. And then when they do cut your hours and it's revealed that they need me even less, they're going to fire me because they don't want to have to pay me. It's no different than when you work at a restaurant. Okay? I used to work at a restaurant as a busboy when I was a younger man. If business was slow that night, they would look at me and go, hey, we don't need you anymore. But I'm scheduled to work until midnight, I would say. Yeah, but business is slow. And we would rather send you home than have to pay you your wages for the next few hours. They do the same thing to waiters and waitresses, even though they only make $2.13 an hour plus tips. It's 2 hours till closing. We're really slow. We could save ourselves $4 if we just have you clock out now and go home. Are restaurants wrong for doing that? It's business. Tony Khan's not a good businessman. He'd rather pay people to sit at home and waste his daddy's money than to cut them. Because the people like Meltzer have created this narrative that it's wrong to fire someone due to money-saving issues.
Wrestling for most people is not a job for life. It's you have and nor are any sports. A few people will be super lucky and they'll be able to stay in it.
Then why do you make it seem like it's wrong for WWE to fire some of these guys?
For their entire lives or much of their lives, but most people,
Jim Ross, who we just talked to.
Jim Ross managed to be in it for 50 years on and off, yeah. But most people are, in sports, you get a couple of years. In wrestling, you get more because if you're good at it, there's a market for you. If you're really good at it, you can stay past your prime because you're smart enough to learn how to do that.
Yeah.
That's a different thing. But I don't know. I just thought that there was a lot there that I just felt very sad watching the whole week unfold. More because of Lucas, who was like just a guy asking a question. And
no, what you should do is be giving Lucas some advice as the senior guy who's been doing this longer. Lucas, next time get your own sources. Lucas, don't mention other websites like that, because when you do, it makes you come off as an aggregate, as a mark for them. Come on.
Maybe it's the fact that if you're honest in this business, you're going to take a lot of heat. But I'm used to it. But like for a normal person, it's and he's his best.
Oh, so Dave, you're not normal? What makes you any less normal than this guy?
I can tell he's a very normal person, and he's not used to this. And he got.
Yeah, the guy even said on I watched the interview he did with Woke Wrestling or Post Wrestling. He's only been watching wrestling and writing about wrestling for 3 years. He did motorsports, probably Formula One before this. That tells me that this guy's just a bandwagon jumper. He's going to find the next hot thing and start covering that on his YouTube channel. Whatever.
For doing, just being honest at the podcast from people who just want to defend WWE at all costs and just lash out with like horrible.
I'm not defending WWE at all costs. I've done it so many times on this channel. When WWE screws up, I've said what's wrong with it. But I also cover the other side of the fence. That's my main problem, and that's my purpose for this video, is that you will ask puff questions at an AEW press conference because you don't want to lose your access. But yet you complain when, PW Insider didn't even care. Meltzer, Dave Scherer goes, I don't care if we get into another press conference ever again. In 2004, PW Insider had been up for and started for maybe a week or two. And guess what? They broke the story that Lesnar was leaving WWE. And it pretty much ruined WrestleMania that year, because guess what? All the other New Yorkers read that website, because that's all that live up in the Northeast is a bunch of dirt sheet readers. And a bunch of indie insider fans. And they booed Lesnar and Goldberg both out of the building. Come on now. It boggles my mind. It really does with this guy. He's such a hypocrite. But PW Insider, they knew WWE was mad at them. That didn't stop them from, calling out everything that WWE did thereafter.
Things, and not realizing that, again, whoever it was that told him that never should have said that, and probably should apologize to him for saying that, because if you're going to have real media at the press conference and you say it's a stupid question when it was the only almost.
So he's right. Whatever WWE PR guy said that does need to apologize, but at the same time, they weren't wrong. And they're probably never going to invite this guy to another press conference again. Or, if they're smart, they only started doing these press conferences because AEW did them. And it gives them, hey, we can air this after the YouTube show, or on YouTube after the PLE, and we can put sponsors all over it and get more money. You know, I mean, at this point, don't even do them anymore. Don't do conference calls before PLEs. Don't do press conferences after the PLEs. Yes, one bad apple had to spoil it for the whole bunch, but fans don't get anything. I didn't even watch it because I know better. I knew you weren't going to get anything big out of it.
Innocuous, nothing question, and you got one good question or one real question, and then you tell the guy not to, and the word gets around. It's like, what is, if you're a real reporter, you think this is some freaking sideshow cult. You know what I mean? If you had, and it was in France, so they were lucky. If this was the United States, and but if it was the United States and it was like a real reporter from a real outlet, he wouldn't have said it. Mm-hmm. It was in France to a guy he didn't know, and
I saw a young kid who.
So when MJF calls reporters Tits McGee, granted he's in character, I don't see you ragging on him. I don't. Again, AEW's good, WWE's bad. You talk about being in a cult. You need to wake up, pal, and realize that your precious little Tony Khan and your precious Young Bucks and your 5, 6, 8 stars, they're not as good as you think they are, pal. And the ratings show it. And you can keep blaming other sports all you want to, but the ratings are going to continue to plummet. The arenas are going to continue to be maybe 3/4 empty. They had a good collision this week in Vancouver, but getting over 3,000 fans only once a month doesn't solve your problem. Having fans jam-pack an arena for a pay-per-view doesn't solve your problem when, you do 8 shows a month, 4 Dynamites and 4 collisions, and 1 pay-per-view, and the 1 pay-per-view and maybe one of the other shows is doing more than 2,000 people, and you won't call that out. You won't say what the real problem is, which is the cokehead's booker, his booking. Come on, who's in a cult here? Who's got the wool over their eyes, really?
Nervous to speak on the microphone, and he kind of took advantage of that.
And got a little shot in that he probably wanted to, until he realized that it didn't play out that well, because his bosses are trying to be nice to these people, but he had his old wrestler mentality, from the 90s. And
no, come on. I don't think Nick Khan's going out of his way. Nick Khan probably is not going out of his way to be nice to wrestling websites. And Triple H was doing conference calls before every NXT PLE, long before Endeavor ever took over the company, where he was nice to these guys. Meltzer used to call in for them. It all goes back to the fact that this guy did not think to go, hey, I heard X, Y, and Z. Is this true? No. You sat there and came off like a complete mark going, I read on XYZ where you said this, where this happened. If he had never mentioned the websites and said, hey, I saw where this was said, and I saw where Ronda Rousey said this about this person. Do they have any correlation with each other? But no, he decides to come off like a total idiot.
It seeped out for a second. So,
yeah, I hope he does not stop doing what he's doing, because he's still very young, and this is.
Well, I hope he doesn't bully him out of doing.
I don't think it's bullying. I think Triple H gave him a good piece of career advice. Get your own sources. Now, could he have worded it a little bit differently without having to bash PW Insider and Fightful? Yeah. But he's basically telling the kid, hey, do your own investigating. Do your own investigation. Then get back to me. Then ask your question.
That he does.
Yeah.
Going forward. That it's just like, it's something where it emboldens him and does not go, is this worth my mental health?
Yeah.
And is this worth like the abuse?
Oh, God. Mental health and abuse. Learn to have some thick skin. Mental health. If something like that violates your mental health, he's received death threats. They got block buttons for a reason. Just block them. You don't have to give it any thought, dude. Keep doing you. Just like I do. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and end it here. I've been going for an hour and a half now on a video clip that's 45 minutes long. But Meltzer needs to wake up and realize that he's just as big of a problem as anybody else is in this. And as soon as he gets out of his own cult, and as soon as he gets the wool over his, pulled back, from his eyes, the better off this place will, the better off he'll be. Anyway, folks, we'll see you down the road. I'm probably going to do a part 2 about this, because he did go on another radio show and double down on it. So we'll see if we can do a part 2 of this tomorrow. We'll see you down the road.